So just to introduce ourselves, I'm Dawn Ahukanna. I'm a front-end designer and design lead in the IoT Munich Center in Germany for IBM. And I used to work with Ashley in the UK Hersley studio.
Mike.
Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, and I'm Ashley, and I work in our Hersley studio back in the UK. I'm a visual designer, and I joined IBM about 2 years ago now, straight out of university.
So let's talk about design. I always like to go back to the definition of the word, and for us in IBM, it's really important. It's not just about pretty pictures. It's about the purpose, planning, intention that exists behind an action, a fact, or material object. So a few quotes, some of our favorites that we've handpicked, and Ed Catmull seems to get the vote this presentation. And for Pixar Studios, they said we test all our designs early so that we can fail fast. And the picture is actually Walt Disney reviewing the sketches from his artists where they were debating whether Pinocchio should start out as a wooden boy or real boy and become wood, but they tested those ideas. This is one of my favorites. Early on, all of our movies suck. This is a company that has released 14 back-to-back #1 animated movie videos and broke box offices. You're not supposed to do that. Broke every conventional rule, and yet they're saying right at the beginning all their movies suck. And another one is the movie Up. Started off with a bird, a prince, a king, and two princes in the cloud. The only thing they kept was the word up and the bird. So this one I think is really important because we're so concerned about what's right and what's perfect that the things that we tend to dismiss as mistakes, perhaps, you should take a bit more seriously. And they're not what you intended, but that doesn't make them wrong. And my quote is, penicillin was an accident. The guy who invented it didn't start off with the intention of creating penicillin, and yet it's one of the most powerful drugs that we use every day to fight infection. And the key thing to all of this is you have to keep asking why. And next one, somebody didn't. because this is the state of the truck 60% of the time, and it says that Starbucks sucks. I'm sure this is not what they meant for their brand, but hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of our thinking and our approach and what we're going to be sharing a bit later. So, so design at IBM, what we've decided to do, it actually is a renaissance for us. Back in the late 50s, our CEO at the time, Thomas Watson Jr., came up with the phrase that good design is good business. And that's the letter that he wrote to every single employee to show that he was serious and he wanted people to raise their consciousness. So this morning, Jason talked about CEOs mandating that people should raise their level of, he didn't call it consciousness, he said design, but that's what they're trying to give people permission to do. And so they were part of the World Trade Center, one of the few organizations, corporate organizations that participated. He employed the Eames, Paul Rand. That globe with IBM on it was one of our actual exhibits that we created and contributed to that World Trade Show. And you've got the famous Rebus. And one of our iconic designs in the 60s was the Selectic typewriter. We solved the problem of sticky keys. And we sold a ton of those. And it was something that everybody used. We don't make that anymore. We make software. We make services. We make experiences now. And now we're coming through and applying that again.
So Ginny Romaty is our current CEO at IBM, and she's been pushing the client experience over the past 5 years. It's brought about a huge change for us, and the client initiative is putting the focus back on clients as individuals. And this is for our customers and for our users. And ideally, we want everyone to have the best possible overall experience when they interact with IBM. So we have over 150 different countries where we have IBM offices in our locations, and we have over 380,000 employees. As Dawn mentioned, we're now working in our software portfolio and we have over 3,000 enterprise products. So this is just a little hint at how huge a company IBM is, but we work in very small teams. And the way we can do that, based on following Ginny's push for client experience, is through IBM Design.
So, starting at the beginning of our journey, these were our first principles in 2013. So we had the problem of all these small, disparate teams spread geographically. We somehow had to figure out how to work together. The second one, the square, is feedback from our users that our products look like 50 different people made the same thing. So they needed to work the same way. It needed to look like an IBM product. It needed to work like an IBM product, the same as some of our competitors. And the inverted triangle works for me, is about the focus on the user. So you have a huge organization at the top working to make sure that each individual user's life and use of our products is a delightful experience.
So you might be thinking, why did we go down the route of design thinking? Well, we have a few words from our official sponsor, Phil Gilbert. He's our General Manager in IBM Design in Austin.
Hi, I'm Phil Gilbert, General Manager for Design for IBM. We created our design program at IBM to respond to the two fundamental drivers that digitization today is requiring. The first is we have to move faster. The second is we have to deliver more human-centered outcomes that are in fact great, delightful experiences for our clients and our employees. You have to do the same thing. And so we now are bringing our culture of design and design thinking to you through our IBM Studios platform and through our services organization.
So to kind of boil that down to something really simple that we can practice every day, this is Phil's equation, and I subscribe to it, and this is what we try to use. So we say people, practices, plus places should give you the outcomes that you and your users desire. So we're going to talk about people.
So since 2013, we've hired over 1,600 designers. We're all from different backgrounds, we have different skill sets, but we all come together to achieve the same goal, which is to do great work. Some of us have been lucky enough, if we've joined IBM in the past couple of years, to participate in IBM Design Bootcamps, which is 3 months of training in Austin where you get to learn and then practice IBM Design Thinking. We've recently matured our offerings and we now run industry bootcamps for our experienced hires, as we're now hiring as much from the industry as we are from universities.
Design researchers, I've heard this recently fed back that this is the biggest disruption that design has brought to IBM. And that's because we're really bringing in now the voice of the user and what the user's needs are right at the beginning of the production lifecycle of our products.
So our user experience designers take what our researchers find and the requirements that they see that our users need, and then they put it into practice. So they wireframe, they paper prototype and create user journeys that our visual designers then take and transform the look and the feel and the personality to make sure that all of our products are aligned.
And then finally, front-end developers, it's not about developing and then putting some nice skin on it. It's about taking the user experience, keeping the integrity of that experience and producing it technically. And we say to code is to build and to build is to design.
And in IBM, we also run many different internship programs. And in our Hersley studio, we take on 1 to 3 designers a year from university placements, and they study in between their second and their third year, and they become like an integral part of the studio environment, and they become really at one with our multidisciplinary teams, and we learn as much from them as they do from us. Our current UPs, as you can see here, they have a really great time, and sadly we're going to lose them in a couple of weeks, but we're going to get some new ones, so we're really excited for that.
So practices. Some of this will be familiar with you. I'm just going to highlight some things. This has been a big challenge for us as an organization and talking about design. It's looking for the real problem, not the imagined. And then even once you have figured out what you think your problem is, looking at a range of possibilities and diverging and making sure that we do that so that we finally eliminate all the things that are not the best option, and what we converge on is the best possible solution given constraints, needs, whatever else. And that's what we call design thinking. It's not just about drawing.
One of our favourite stories is in Creative Confidence is one of Doug Dietz, and he was the design principal at GE Healthcare, and he was part of the team that created the MRI machine. And he got really excited when he first went to see the MRI machine in place in hospitals, and he was stood outside of the room watching a young family come towards him, and the little girl was terrified, she was crying, and straight away the MRI technician phoned for the anesthesiologist to come down and to sedate the poor girl so that she could actually go through the scanner. It was really upsetting for Doug to see this because he was so excited about seeing it really succeed. So he realised that even though he wouldn't get the funding to completely redesign the machine, they could redesign the experience. So they went away and they came back with this idea, which allowed them to completely cover the rooms with decals, the floors, the ceilings, even the corridors outside. They wrote scripts so that the patient was the main user of the story. And before, it's really sad, 80% of the children had to be anaesthetised in order to go through the machine, and after the renovation, this reduced to just 2 patients in a period of just over a year. Yeah. And his favourite part was when he saw a young family then leave the room, and the little girl said, "Can we come back tomorrow?"
So the other thing I wanted to mention as well is that Doug actually attended one of the IDEO Design Thinking D-School sessions, which is what inspired him to take this approach for his problem. So design thinking, IBM didn't invent it. And there's a lot of stuff that we have invented, but not this. This was codified by IDEO. It's grounded in empathy, prototyping, collaboration. But as IBM, we have to add something to it. So we adapted it because of our size and our challenge. So we added hills, playbacks, and sponsored users, and we'll be talking about this in detail a little bit later. And it was really to make sure that this would scale for an enterprise. And this is now our version 2 of IBM Design Thinking, based on feedback, practicing, watching people actually use the tool, reinforcing that design is the intent behind the outcome. So we have principles, the loop, and the keys. And I'm going to quickly run through the new principles. So it's not new, but I think it's a reinforcement focus on the user's outcomes. Diverse and empowered team. You can't just have a team of just designers or just developers or just product managers or just sales or just marketing. It has to be a blend of all of those coming together to make the outcomes. And keep moving. A lot of times what we found was that people got stuck and they stopped and then they said it didn't work. So the loop. We simplified those steps that you saw. There were 7 hexagons to 3 things. It doesn't matter which order you do it in, you have to do all 3. And that's observe, reflect, and make. And that will turn up in a minute. So before I talk about how we used it, already we've noticed some anti-patterns. So this one is probably familiar to everybody, analysis paralysis. You just observe and you keep talking about it and you do nothing, okay? The next one is the opposite, which is reactionary. You observe and you just do stuff. You don't really think about how it's relevant to your problem. We call that flying blind. And then the last one, it always reminds me of food, takeout. You observe and you just make, and you don't really think about whether that's the best thing to do. So it's taking orders. So what should you do? Observing is about immersing yourself in your user's world. So understand what your user is going to do, not what you intended the product to be. Reflect is about converging, and it's really important to do this, as well as go off and get a great bunch of ideas. You have to throw them against the wall like pasta and see what sticks. If it doesn't stick, then it's already the first test that it's not relevant. And then finally, you have to make something, giving form. That could be as simple as a decision, that could be as complicated as the product or prototype, but you have to do something. The keys.
So we've honed in on a set of key management practices and we came out with the keys. We have hills that align us across teams, we have playbacks that align us over time, and we have sponsor users that align us with our users' reality. A hill is a statement of intent that you write around user outcomes. They tell you where to go, but they don't define how you get there. That's up to your team to figure out. And we recommend that you have a maximum of 3 hills on the go at any one time. Playbacks, well, if hills help you get aligned over time, playbacks are your way to stay aligned. Not every team member has the time to stay in the loop, so this is your time to reflect together and to provide feedback on the work that you've done since you've last been in as a part of it. And then sponsor users, as I mentioned before, are a way to keep in line with your users' reality. If you're not a pilot, you really don't have any idea how to land an airliner. And sponsor users are our way of saying that we don't know everything. It's our chance to validate our assumptions and to fill in the gaps that we don't know. And that's okay. So the keys align us. Great outcomes don't happen by accident. They're a result of great leadership and management practices, and they help us to focus and align as a team on the user outcomes that they care about. So just to reiterate, we have the principles, the loops, and the keys, and these are the 3 major parts of IBM Design Thinking. To help us remember these different practices, we have 2 guides. We have a field guide that includes a summary of the fundamental concepts of IBM Design Thinking, and we have some go-to websites, the first one being our research website for our researchers to stay up to date with our current research practices. And for those of us that don't practice research, it's really good for us to still get the ultimate value out of our sponsor users.
So thinking, some of the things that I just ran through very quickly about our thinking is all on this microsite here, so please feel free to go and have a look. And sorry, the language is basically the distillation of some of the lessons that we've already learned. So we call them reusable lessons. They're not reusable. There are actually components there if you want to reuse, but I think what we're trying to share with everyone is why. It's not just the thing, but why we've done what we've done, how this came about, and it keeps evolving and adding over time. So it's a living language. Oh yeah, and then all of this stuff gives us design superpowers. So, places.
So since 2013, as we've already said, IBM Design really came to life. It started in 2 studios in the US, in Austin and in New York. By 2014, we'd multiplied to 6 studios right across the world. We had one pop up in Birmingham, we had Dublin, we had Hursley, right the way across to Shanghai. And by 2016, this had more than quadrupled. We had 28 design studios across the world. And now in 2017, we have 42 studios in 32 cities, in 22 countries, which is home to even more than 1,600 designers, which is really cool. Yeah. This is a photo of our studio space in Hursley, and everything is designed to be able to pick up and move it around so you can adapt to whatever it is that you're doing at that moment in time, being a meeting or a playback or running a workshop. This is another area space in our Hursley studio. As you can see, everything's on wheels, so you can just move it right out if you need the space. This is a meeting space in our India studio, and we have some really cool kitchen space with short meeting locations in our Austin studio, some meeting pods on the 2nd floor in our Austin studio, and then we have our IBM iX studio in London South Bank, and lastly we have our Birmingham studio, which is home to the Z Systems mainframe.
So just a point about the studios, they're a space where everyone comes to collaborate, not just the designers. So as well as being a working studio, it's also a place where you take the teams that you're working with and actually carry out the workshops and do the collaboration. So all of this is great, but no outcomes, it wouldn't really go anywhere. So outcomes are the things that allow us to deliver delightful client experiences. So we're just going to share some before and after and some things that we've done. So this was what our mail client looked like afterwards. 400,000 people looking at this every single day. Today, it looks like this. It's got backed with analytics. It's configurable. It's a modern web-based interface. And Ashley was telling me yesterday that apparently she noticed that they were doing some A/B testing because she could see something on someone else's screen that wasn't on hers. So we're even doing this ourselves. Pure App is a data center in a box product. It's a little bit dated now. This was before the whole cloud thing and our answer. And if you go to the after, this reconfiguration was all about synchronizing with our users' workflow. They told us how they wanted to use the product. We changed the interface so that they could use it the way that they wanted, and the product.
So on IBM Messaging, we're bringing a completely new product to the industry, and we wanted a way to get our potential users and sponsor users in touch with us. So we threw together a quick website that allows them to quickly see some scenarios that they can then relate to their industry sector and then sign up to stay in touch with us.
And this was, it's not so much an offering, it's more an experiment that we ran around with the team. So we had got a diverse team together, we had 12 weeks, and our ambition was that we would have mobile apps in both public stores, a SaaS backend, and released in users' hands and open source in 12 weeks. And everybody told us it couldn't be done. We didn't do it in 12, we did it in 14. So, because of design thinking, we now have the space to do something like this. Previously, it would have been, we'd had to say how much it was going to make, what was it for, who were the customers. We were able to experiment even at this level. So just want to briefly talk about workshops. Design thinking is not just workshops. Our focus in IBM is the whole spectrum for workshops runs from educational to outcomes-based. And we've found that what works for us is doing an aspect of education but showing people how, so being outcomes-based that people can take and use in their everyday work. So just to put it in context, that globe, if that is design thinking, workshops are that dot right there. And yet that's the thing that gets all the publicity and all the promotion, and people see all the sticky notes and dots. That's just the beginning of the journey, just like our design thinking is just the beginning.
So this time last year, we'd just finished running a workshop in Copenhagen.
And as you can see, it's an ordinary office. It was an ordinary team who'd asked us to come and help them facilitate. And this was just a normal, everyday, getting on with it, figuring out how to use design thinking to solve some of the problems they had. And it was in cryptography. So it's not exactly your normal go-to for design thinking.
It was a great experience.
Yeah.
So you might be thinking this is all well and good, but does it actually work? Well, the answer is yes. Design-driven enterprises are outperforming traditional businesses by a huge 228%, which is pretty huge. So we're doing something right. And there's our contact info, but you can reach us afterwards if you have any questions.
So design thinking is about delivering great user experiences.
It's about finding the right problem so that you shouldn't have to work hard to sell it. You should only need to make people aware of it.
So design, making what you have better.
IBM Design is making people happy.
And IBM Design Thinking is about making lots of money.
So thank you for organising this and having us and listening. And we hope we've shared some great user outcomes with you today. And we'll be around all day if any of you have any questions after.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.